Hello and welcome back to An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about the 2012 Australian science fiction film The 25th Reich. Before I go any further with this video, however, a content warning. This film contains a particularly problematic scene of an already problematic kind, a sexual assault. If you find discussion of that kind of content disturbing, you may wish to stop the video now. For those of you who are still going to continue, however, let's talk about the 25th Reich. So this film begins in 1944 Germany with some brief shots of the interior of a factory. These are all pretty clearly second-rate CGI scenes, but the last thing we see, this is the important aspect, the last thing we see is what looks like a flying saucer. The film then jumps backward in time a year, and also to the other side of the world, Australia, where 5 US soldiers have been sent into the outback in search of 2 escaped pumas. Now, you may be thinking, hang on a second, there's a global war on, is this mission really a good use of resources? But fear not, the whole puma thing is a cover story, a completely unnecessary one as far as I can see, but a cover story nonetheless. The soldiers are actually being sent on a time travel mission to 50,000 years in the past. This is vital to the war effort, apparently. So they go back in time, where they fight some CGI lions and some CGI giant mosquitoes, and then they leap into the future where, well, let's just say that things haven't gone very well. And the movie then ends rather abruptly with the promise or threat of a sequel, which has never materialised in the decade since. Probably for the best, frankly. So, look, when a movie's plot involves time travel and Nazis, I don't really expect it to be good, but I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that it will avoid being boring. And alas, the 25th Reich is dull, dull, dull. The best thing about the film is, quite literally, the credit sequence. So, how and why does it go wrong? Well, as you might imagine, in a number of ways. So first of all, at the beginning of the film, the filmmakers choose to convey the whole mission to find pumas information with a text crawl on the screen, rather than, having a couple of seconds of expository dialogue where somebody orders them to go and look for the pumas. Now, I will sometimes, drag a film for using too much obvious exposition, but there is a time for such dialogue, and this is one of those times. The film's failure to make even as much effort as a quick expository conversation is simply the first warning sign that no one here is actually interested in making much effort. And this is particularly obvious with the writing in general. Why are the men not told their actual mission ahead of time? Why only send 5 guys on such an important operation? Why jump to the future without actually having accomplished anything in the past? Don't bother asking these questions because there's no evidence anyone involved with the film bothered to do so. Stuff happens because that's what they wrote would happen, presumably so they could hit the various set pieces they wanted to hit, vis-a-vis monsters and Nazi war machines. But there's no indication that any kind of how does this all fit together as a logical kind of construct, how does it make sense in universe, has been given any kind of consideration. Now, speaking of monsters and Nazi war machines, the CGI for them is all terrible. It's not all equally terrible. The giant mosquitoes, for instance, are marginally better than the prehistoric lions. But at its best, it manages very bad. And, perhaps this is a sign of my ever-increasing age, but I find bad CGI is far more of a problem for a film than bad practical effects. A bad practical effect is still practical. It's a real thing. It has real weight, it casts real shadows, and it moves in a real way. Possibly a clunky, clumsy way that makes it obvious that it's basically just a hodgepodge of cardboard and wires. But that's still far better than the dross that gets served up here. The prehistoric lions don't look the remotest bit convincing even before they begin to move. And as soon as they do move, their fakeness becomes even more obvious. They simply don't look remotely like real things interacting with real people, and it really does drag you out of the movie. Not that you were much in the movie to begin with. Now, of course, good effects by themselves couldn't have saved this film. But the naffness of the CGI here is just another example of the way in which the people behind the movie either could not or did not actually deliver a quality project. Was this a lack of ability or a lack of interest in delivering something good? I don't know. But either way, they didn't. Finally, as I kind of alluded to in my content warning earlier, as bad as everything else about this film is, whether it be the weak acting, the glacial pace, the ropey accents, or the terrible CGI, the movie still finds ways to dig itself deeper and deeper into a pit. After being filled with sophomorically phallic imagery throughout, it decides to have one of the characters sexually assaulted and to play that scene for laughs. Sexual assault is not funny. It is never funny. This should be a simple concept to grasp. Having it happen to a male character does not in any way change that sexual assault is an abhorrent and terrible thing. It's an inexcusable decision to include a scene like this and make it attempt to be funny. Even if the film was otherwise excellent, and let's be clear, it really, 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 really is not excellent or even good in any way at all, this scene would instantly put it on my never watch again list. So that's the 25th Reich, which I most sincerely do not recommend. Next time, the first attempt at a screen interpretation of the Alex Rider books, 2006 film Stormbreaker, or Alex Rider, Operation Stormbreaker, as it was known in the US. But that's next time. Until then, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. Certainly hope you enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the movie The 25th Reich.